Sure. No,
Yeah,
I
that
think
sounds good.
it's time to do it.
Cool. So I guess I'll introduce myself first. My name is Landere Naisbitt, and I work for Blue Hill Heritage Trust as the outreach coordinator. And I'm really excited today to share some kind of nature wintry holiday crafts with you. And I'm going to pass it over to my friends Martha and Tate for their introductions.
All right. I'm Martha Bell, and I'm the environmental educator at Island Heritage Trust, which is down in Deer Isle. And today I'm going to share some of the things that I noticed when I was on a walk, and they might be some things that you want to go out and notice, or maybe you'll find different things, but it's definitely a good time of year for discovery.
Awesome. And my name is Tate Yoder. I grew up on the Blue Hill Peninsula. I'm currently the media specialist at Maine Center for Coastal Fisheries in Stonington. And I'm going to be sharing some nature photography tips and tricks and how you can get started for that. So.
Awesome. Would anyone in the audience like to introduce themselves or say anything?
Yes, so this is Allie, my sister, and I'm Parker Henschke. And I'm from Blue Hill, Maine. Woo.
Awesome. Thank you both. Courtney, we're just doing introductions. If you have anyone on your end who would like to introduce
You want to say hi?
Hi.
Well, we've got Sadie and this is
Awesome.
Right.
Are your older two at school right now?
They are, yeah.
Awesome. Well, welcome. And I think we're going to pass it over to Tate to get us started. Thank you so much, Tate, for being with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to tailor the presentation, just very short, no worries, to you all, but I'll also try to keep in mind of the recording folks who are going to be watching this later who might be interested in some of this content. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Oop. I guess we're in present mode here. So a little bit about myself before we start. I grew up on the Blue Hill Peninsula, and I was really fortunate enough to have all of the local trails and land that's around us to hike on and to learn photography on. And so this really stems from my interest in being here, and I'm really just fortunate to have these spots. And so if you are around some other areas that have really great trails or spots to check out, nature photography can be really fun activity to try out. So we'll get started here. So the tools that you really need for photography are actually really simple these days. I mean, one of the best things about technology is that we have, cell phones. A lot of us have really accessible tools that we can use to take photos. Just not 10, 15 years ago, we were sort of stuck with film cameras and sort of higher end digital cameras that are hard to use. But the nice thing is we have our cell phones. So it's really easy to get into photography. So if you're thinking about doing it, I encourage you to try it because it's more accessible than ever. So, but whatever you have, I encourage you to just start with what you have. So if you have a cell phone, great. If you got a GoPro or maybe an older film camera or some random camera that you're not sure about, try it out. It's fun to try to learn, and hopefully the tech won't get too involved. And if you have a tripod, great, but it's definitely not needed to get going. So some of the genres of nature photography are as sort of as listed. So we have landscape. So think of that category as sort of a broad, picturesque, vistas, photos of the land and what's around you. Wildlife is all about the animals and the wildlife that's around. We have sort of an abundance of them that are kind of hard to capture around here. I've found it extremely difficult to capture them really well, but if you're out there long enough and quiet enough, sometimes, sort of a miracle can happen, and they can, either get close to you or you can get close to them without them noticing, and you can snap a quick shot. I think of portrait as you or who you're with out on the land or in the environment, right? So if you're hiking with someone, or you want to take a photo of a group member or somebody else, it's kind of fun to be able to take that photo of them and then bring that back and remember not only your time there, but also with that person. So that's another one of my favorites that I'm starting to get more into. Yeah, another one is macro photography. So think of all the small little critters and little beings. I took some photos of some moss and lichen the other day, and it's just kind of fun to get, down and close to what you're going to be taking a photo of and just really study it. I found that sometimes I'll look at something and then take a photo of it, but then really have a better appreciation where I take the photo. I look at it and sort of zoom in and get really close to it. And so one of these, I took this photo of a frog a couple of years ago, or a toad rather, and just kind of got nice and close, and he wasn't bothered by it. So that's kind of a fun way to get around and to get nice and close to what you're taking a photo of. I started getting into underwater photography. Cell phones are not all waterproof, so be careful with that. But if you have a GoPro or a waterproof housing for your cell phone, it's really fun to just kind of, put your camera down there and see what it gets. This photo down here that I inserted is of alewife. It's a river herring fish that's local to this area. And some of the spots that Island Heritage Trust and Blue Hill Heritage Trust are around, some of the streams and ponds, these alewife swim up every spring. So this last spring, I took this photo, and there were billions of them everywhere. It was really a cool chance to get nice and close to them. And so I snapped this photo of them. And so if you're interested in fish and underwater creatures, this can be a really great way to connect with them as well. And a more challenging genre of nature photography is astrophotography. So this image was on the Cutler Coast here in Maine. But as you can see, it sort of shows the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. So that's something that if you get really into it, it's a great challenge to go out and try that out. And there's also so many more. Nature photography, I don't want to limit it. So if you're interested in just taking photos outside, there's so much you can do with it. So start with your favorite and branch out. So I have just a little bit of a couple tips, maybe if you're interested in starting. I like to think of photographers as storytellers. So we're all, big into stories, and we love watching movies and reading books and listening to stories on tape. And all of this sort of boils down to our connecting ourselves with other people and subjects. And so photography is a great way to do that. I often say that a photograph is more unique if it shows your connection to something in a sort of a unique, special way. So we were talking about Peter's Brook earlier, and if you're Peter's Brook Trail, and if you have a certain spot that you love, or there's a certain tree that you really like to hang out by or something, it's kind of fun to capture that because you're connecting with that in a way that's unique. So think of yourself as a storyteller. The second tip I have is to make it a habit. I tried out a really challenging but seemingly easy habit, which is just a photo a day challenge. It's something that seems kind of easy, but it's actually harder than you think to take a photo every day. And over time, that sort of accumulates to something that you're that documents your life. And that can be a really fun way, especially in when we're quarantining and sort of learning remote, to sort of, look back at what life was like in these sort of unique times. And if you take a photo every day, it can be kind of rewarding to look back on that. And I always say it's a good excuse to, or make photography a good excuse to get outside. So even if it's raining or if it's, the sun's rising or setting, it's a good excuse to get out there. And then the other tip I have is just to set limitations. So if you find that you're taking 100 to 200 photos and you're just tapping away on that camera, try to limit yourself to 5 or 10 and see if you can try to tell a story in a short number of photographs. So if you get really into it and you want to try out some other activities, you can definitely go super far. This shot is of me up on Katahdin. I was fortunate enough to have a job where I got to go and time lapse all kinds of places in Maine. Time lapsing is capturing a scene by capturing it in stills, but playing it back in video. So it ends up being sort of a time warped feeling of a scene that's speeding by. So it's really great for clouds or sunsets and slower moving objects in a scene that are hard to see in real time. And I just encourage you to keep trying. If you're interested in any type of photography, go for it. It's super fun. I have just fallen in love with all forms of media creation throughout my life. And so I encourage you to start, even if you've never taken a photograph before. And I just also want to say that night photography is also really, really fun. If you enjoy looking at the stars or, trying to figure out the constellations or just getting out at night, it's a good excuse to get out there. And so this shot, again, is of Cutler Coast, but basically what happens is you take a photo for 20 to 30 seconds. So rather than a quick snap, it takes in all of the light within 20 to 30 seconds, and it makes sort of a brighter image. So just throwing that out there as kind of a fun, see what's out there. It's a lot of fun to get out and take some photographs. And I hope you all can take advantage of the tech that we have in our pockets to do so. So I think that's pretty much all I've got on my end. Happy to take questions. I think are we going to do that at the end? I think that was the plan. So I'll stick around. And if you have any questions about photography or whatever you want, I'm happy to answer. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tate. Those were great tips. I can't wait to try some of them myself.
Awesome.
Yeah, I wrote them all down.
Great.
Nice job.
All right. I love it.
Parker, do you have a camera or a cell phone or something like that to take pictures?
Oh, well, I have a phone.
And we have a big camera.
Yes, and we do have a big camera as well and a tripod, so I'm probably going to try it.
Awesome.
Show us what you make. We'd love to know.
We would love to see it.
Okay.
Absolutely. Martha, would you like to go
All
next?
right. Sure, I'd be glad to. All right. Well, in preparation for this, I thought about what's outside. We're at the beginning of December here, and it's not springtime where everything is green, but is there anything still out there? I could just say, oh, there were plants and now they died and everything's dead. But is that true? No, not at all. If I look out my kitchen window here, I actually see something that is kind of drying up, but the leaves are still on it. This is a beech tree, and the leaves stick on. Have you ever noticed that? How some leaves fall early, like all the maples go so quickly, and others, they stick on, like this. I'm not even saying the word right. Sorry, I'm stumbling.
That's a hard
There's
word.
there's a great vocabulary word in there, but I've lost it. It's not rolling off my tongue. Do you know it, Lander? Marcescens? Marcescens, yes. So that's kind of a fun one. And once they do go, beech have such interesting buds too. Those are very, very different buds than some others that we see. And we'll talk about trees probably at another webinar because there's so much to talk about with trees. But that one stuck out when I looked out my kitchen window this morning. And then I was just looking here. Does anyone see that one? What's that? Have you noticed that? Does it look kind of Christmassy with red and green? Yeah, a little wintergreen there. I could even chew on the leaf or eat the berry if I wanted to. That could be fun. But really what I was thinking about looking out there and going for my walks were the things that we don't really notice in the spring and summertime when we have big flowers and the leaves are all different colors. But the things like the mosses and the lichens and even some of the ferns are still green right now. So I started looking at those and making some of my own discoveries. Now, I was looking at some of these things and discovering things, but you know, when you go out in the woods, it's always nice to make your own discoveries. So whatever you find interesting is probably the place that you should go. But this is where I went. Well, this plant here, look at it, it's still nice and green. This is called Polypoty. It's a kind of fern, and it's smaller than a lot of other ferns. It grows right on rocks. And then I turned it over. Oh, I don't know. Can you see what's on there? Can you tell? Do you see any kind of rusty colored dots there?
Yeah.
I wonder what those are. Well, we could wonder for a long time, but you know how a lot of plants have seeds? These have spores, and inside those, we could talk about all sorts of big words there, but basically it's a different way where plants will reproduce. So this is Polypoty. So if you see these, turn over the frond here and see what's on the other side. They might not all have it, so some will, some won't. So when you're down at Peters Brook next time, you might see some of these, turn them over. There's another wood fern that's out there right now. That's a little more lacy. It won't last forever. As the deep, deep winter comes, it will probably turn brown and it'll be ready for some new growth in the springtime, and you won't see this growth from this year, but it's there now. So take a look and turn it over, and I could show you this and you're not gonna see anything on the underside, but you know me, I love to have magnifiers. So if I took this and started looking, oh my goodness. Ooh, they look like little tufts and they're little balls, and some are softer and looser than others. So I don't know, check out your ferns, turn them over, see what they're all about, because they're still out there and you'll notice them more now than before. So then what did I go for? I started thinking about, lichen. Do you guys know about lichen? I don't know, I have a few different kinds here. Well, sometimes here I have some lichen that was on a stick, some that was on the ground, sometimes it hangs from the trees, all this kind of thing. And what is lichen? Well, there used to be a story about, let me see, I'm gonna switch the roles a little bit, but when I was young, I used to hear about algae, and fungus, because algae and fungus together made this nice symbiotic relationship. Just means that they kind of worked together and helped each other out. Nowadays, we have to throw in things like cyanobacteria and yeast. So it's a very complicated relationship sometimes, but relationships are like that. You know, we all give and take in different ways. And the way the story was when it was Alan and Frederica was the algae would provide the food, because being like a plant, you take the sun and you do that thing called photosynthesis and you make your own food. And then the fungus has like a structure, so it could live in there. And then we'll have to make room for the cyanobacteria or the yeast, whatever it might be. But a lot happens in that little thing. And they come in all these interesting, shapes and sizes. So I have this one here. Now, one thing is it's kind of dry right now. It was dry out there this morning, but the magic. See my water bottle here? If I take that and spray it, it kind of comes alive. They're not alive, I shouldn't say, but it moistens up. I have some here that I've had in a little more water, but you can see, when I do that, can you see different colors on this? You might see some is light green, and then there's some brown there. What's that brown? Oh, I wonder how they reproduce. Maybe that brown has something to do with how they reproduce. Oh, they have little fruiting bodies there. And then let's see. Oh, and they come in here's some on bark. some of the books that I have on lichen, like this one here, they break it up with all the different types into just 3 little simple things. One's on the ground, in the rocks, and on trees. So it's that simple. So you could go and check it out. But you know, you could go to a rock and there might be many on one rock. You could go and count how many different kinds of lichen were on one rock. Check out the textures. You might be doing a biodiversity study before you know it. And let's see, the other thing, and this works with, well, here, let me tell you some more about these lichens. So I have some on trees here. We moistened some, let's see. Oh, I like this one here. You see these little, and you know, they all have complicated names in some cases, but you could make up your own names for them. That's always kind of a fun thing to do. You like, see those little discs on there? Reminds me of something Dr. Seuss would come up with, right? So check out all the different kinds of lichens, count the texture, or look at the textures, make up stories. And then the mosses, I had some mosses here. I only have some little pieces, I guess. Let's see. They've been around all the summer when we've been noticing all those flowers, but can you see anything going on with that? What are those little things on top growing out of there? Once in a while, you can see these little things emerging, and those are little spore cases as well. They're like little caps. So there's one on that one. This one, oh, I might have, sorry, I thought I had something a little more pronounced there. Let me see. Well, anyway, if you start looking, you're gonna find all sorts of different textures. And sometimes you can just look. Thing about mosses, they always say mosses grow on the north side of trees and hills. Have you ever heard that? Well, I think I'd go for a walk with a compass and see if that's true. What do you think? Is one side greener than the other? Is one hillside where you're seeing the mosses? They even say that with the polypoty, that they grow on the north side. You want to check it out and find some evidence for me to see if that's true or false. And then sometimes they're in these huge bushy masses almost. And you know, you might want to just take a little animal or make a little animal and have them go for a little walk in the moss or the lichen, or hide them. Maybe you go ahead on the trail and your sister might be a little bit further behind, and then she's gonna have to find your animal. And by doing that, you might discover some mosses and lichens you never thought of before. Give it a try. Do you have any little toys? And if you don't, why don't you make some? You can make them out of a pipe cleaner or a little drawing of something. So different ways of getting up close and looking. And let's see. Oh, I found something I didn't talk about before. Oh, this is a remnant of something. I wonder what it is. You ever notice these things? The fern is gone, but where this is the fertile frond where the spores come out of. So you might see evidence of things that were there before, even though there's nothing on the ground right now but this. All right, and then let's see, do I have anything else? Let me just look here. Let's see. Oh, and then sometimes Tate was talking about storytelling. You know, you could have a little story going on. Have you ever walked in the woods with someone and then you want to do, one person has one sentence and they might start something out, and then the next person comes up with another sentence. And then the third person might have another sentence, and you go back to the first person. Before you know it, you have a story that could be serious or it could be silly. But as a group, you make a story. So why don't you get out there and give it a try?
That's awesome, Martha. Thank you. Cool.
Welcome.
All right, I guess it's on to me. So I'm going to share my screen, and if you guys can let me know if you can see it when I get it up there, because I have a few slides to show you of some nature crafts. All right, give me a thumbs up if you can see the wreath. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Okay, So I just want to let you all know that if you're interested in learning how to make a wreath, we have an online workshop on Wednesday, December 16th at 2 p.m. That's when like the video for how to make the wreath and how to tip, how to like collect all the branches for the wreath will be first premiered, but then the video will also be available after that indefinitely. If you would like to reserve a kit, we are providing free kits with wreath rings, pine cones, ribbon, a winter poem, anything you might need for a wreath aside from the greens, which you'll get to go out and harvest yourself. You can call the Blue Hill Public Library and ask Claire if you can have a kit put aside for you. So that's a fun kind of holiday craft coming up. The second one, I don't know if you've ever done paper mache, but these are paper mache stars, and they can be turned into ornaments or window hangings or just something that you set on a shelf. And we have another video, our office manager, Beth Dickens, put together a video, and in a follow-up email to all of you who have registered, I will send you the link so you can learn how to make these paper mache stars. It's really fun. If you like getting your fingers a little gooey, you'll be using kind of a cornstarch paste or a Mod Podge type thing, and they're pretty fun to make. So I wanted to share that with you, that this is something you can look into when I share the follow-up email. This is a craft that I've done before with groups. If you are familiar with the plant sumac, I think you can see it in this photo. It has those red berries and like furry stems. They grow pretty abundantly across the peninsula, and they're wonderful to harvest because they grow well. We have a lot of them, and it's really cool because as you can see with this necklace, they have a really soft pith, a really soft inside, and you can poke out the inside to make a hole. So you can make beads, you can make whistles, you could make a maple syrup spile out of them. They're super, super cool. And you could use like a piece of wire to poke it out, or you could use a chopstick. I've used that before. I've just gone to the Thai restaurant and asked for some chopsticks. Or like a shish kebab thing that you could buy at a grocery store. And then you can also make these fun little holiday gnomes. And those just involve carving a little bit. And I know some people don't have whittling knives or might not feel comfortable with a knife. And so I'm going to show you another way to do it. Oh, that just shows some of the materials. This here shows two boys at Nichols Day Camp, and they are carving with potato peelers. So if you don't have a knife, you can actually take a potato peeler and it works on wood. It works great. And I'm gonna send out this potato peel tool protocol, and it kind of talks about the safety of potato peelers, because believe it or not, but they can cut you as well as a knife can. They're a little safer. And so this would be a great way if you wanna make a sumac gnome and you just have some kitchen tools, just to take a potato peeler and carve away. It's also really fun to make honey sticks. So you can just go out and find like a pine twig, cut it down to size and carve it and make it look really pretty. And then you can dip it in your honey and put it in your cup for tea. That is super fun as well. And then Martha mentioned the wintergreen, because another really fun thing that you can do is collect a bunch of the wintergreen leaves, snack on them as you're foraging, and then you can turn them into a chapstick or a lip balm. And I will send out the recipe in the follow-up email, but it's basically some beeswax, let's see, so your wintergreen leaves, some oil. If you have like wintergreen essential oil, you might want to add a few drops of that just to give it a little extra punch. It's a simple recipe. It does involve a hot stove and hot wax and oil, so just make sure you have an adult helping you with it. But it's a wonderful thing to make for gifts. And you can order these little jars or chapstick containers online for pretty cheap. You can kind of buy them in bulk, and then you have a bunch of presents for people. And then I wanted to share this because this is another craft that you can go out and forage for. It's a pinecone wreath, and you can make the wreath yourself using grapevines or willow twigs, or you can just buy the wreath at a craft store or online. And then you can go out and look for tiny pine cones. Tiny pine cones are so cute. And hemlock trees, tamarack trees, alder bushes have great baby pine cones. And then all you do is fill up your basket or your container, your bag with pine cones, bring them home, get out a glue gun, and start gluing them to the wreath. And they make this beautiful decoration. Another fun thing that I don't have here, but I'm going to ask you to imagine it. So like down on the bottom of the wreath, sometimes I'll make out of Sculpey clay tiny little animals or birds, and then you can glue those on the pine cones. And it's this pretty little scene inside the wreath. And I think this is my last craft. This is kind of a good old standby, making different types of balsam pillows. So again, you can go out and gather a lot of balsam branches, and then it can be a really fun thing to sit around in a circle at your house and have a bowl and your balsam branches and just take the needles off. And one tip that I like to share, if you haven't done this before, is to save the tiny little sticky, sappy buds at the top of the balsam branches, because those smell really good, and put those in your bowl with pine needles too. And then you could fill, like you can see here on the left, a little tea bag, and you could decorate it with a marker, or you could make an actual pillow, and it could be super simple, just with like 2 pieces of cloth sewn together, or you could decorate a little bit, embroider. You can also make tiny, tiny little balsam pillows that you could hang on your Christmas tree if you have a Christmas tree. And then the last thing I just wanted to share, this doesn't have to do with holiday crafts, but on all of our trails now, if you're itching to get out for a walk and maybe take some photographs, as Tate suggested before, you can upload them. We have iNaturalist projects on all of our trails at this point. And so if you download iNaturalist on your phone, you can go out and take photos of different plants, animals, birds that you see, and upload them and help us keep track of what species are on all of our trails, because we're kind of doing this drive to get as many community members possible so that we can kind of have a better idea of how to plan projects in the future if we know what is living on our trails. So that's all that I have. And again, we will share resources in a follow-up email, as well as the video recording. So if you want to share with friends. And I think we'll, if any of you have any questions now, we could take your questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's for Tate. So Tate, what's your favorite spot to do photography?
Oof,
In the
that's a
peninsula.
tough question. There's a whole bunch of favorite spots in the area. I mean, Blue Hill Mountain is kind of a classic, but I might be switching towards Caterpillar Hill. I now work on Deer Island, Stonington, and so I go by there every day or most days. And that scenic vista there is pretty special. But what's also cool is there's some trails down below. So if you turn off on that road, there's some fun trails in there, and there's a whole bunch of different plants and various species down there. And it's a great spot for blueberry picking if you haven't checked that out too. So that's probably my favorite spot. It's incredible all hours of the day, 24/7, 365.
Cool. So Ellie, do you have any questions?
No.
Oh. Thank you.
Thank you. We have somebody in the chat box who said that they're going to head out to look for lichens as soon as this is over.
Oh, good.
Yeah, lichen
There's
is
so
a
many
great
out
thing
there.
to take macro photography of. Lichen and moss, there's so many different little things about them that I still don't know enough about them. So that's probably what I'll go do.
Yeah, when you look at them up close, I mean, the textures and the details are really amazing.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have like British soldier lichen and pixie cup lichen, and there's some interesting shapes out there that oh, and then I had, here's one. This is one that grows on rocks. It's rock tripe. And this is a little bit more pliable. I have a dry one somewhere. Oops. Anyway, so when they're wet, they're kind of pliable, but people make dyes out of these. They put the, and could you ever guess what color the dye would be? I wonder. You want to take any guesses? What do you think?
Black.
Black. I think that's a really good guess. I think that's about where I would go. It's actually kind of a purple color. They put it, yeah. They soak it for, you know, maybe a month or so, and then they can dye their yarn and then make a scarf or a sweater out of it. So that's kind of surprising that this lichen would do that. Some people think it's edible. Other people don't think it's edible that have tried it. They say, I don't think I do that unless it was really tough. And it has one little spot where it attaches to a rock, like an umbilicus, like a belly button. So you know how there's one spot that you're attached? I don't know if you can see this. Let me see. I'm not sure I can. Maybe you can. Anyway, so there's one little place. So if you see this on a rock, just lift underneath it. You don't even have to pull it off the rock. I did for, this was in my yard, but you'll see that it's just one little spot where it's attached and the rest of it's just kind of flopping around. When it's dried, it looks like dried potato chips. And now it looks kind of like an elephant ear.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of it at, a lot of different kinds of lichen when you go to Peters Brook. I bet you've been looking at all that rushing water. Now look for lichen. In addition.
Awesome. Well, I think we're getting close to concluding, and we're really happy that you all joined us today. If you have any last minute questions, please let us know. And then keep an eye out for the follow-up email with some additional resources.
Yeah. Do you have any special interests that you think you'd like us to talk about in the future? Anyone have anything they really think is interesting that they want to know more about?
Good question, Martha.
Well, think about it. Let us know if anything comes to mind, because if we know you're going to be on a call and you are interested in something, we'll make it happen.
That would be great. That would help us out a lot. We'd love to prepare something that is interesting for the audience in particular.
I think I'm going to head to the shore next month.
Nice.
Winter beach combing. You like that idea? All right. Good.
Wonderful. Well,
nice to see you all. Thank you for joining in.
yeah, it's really good to see you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks so much for joining. Thank you both, Mark.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Enjoy the day.
Hey, Martha.
Oh, yeah, you're still there.